You're watching the Tesla Life live with your host, Mark Goglo.
The 25th of January 2023. Welcome to the show, everybody.
Hello.
As per usual, we've got our usual co-host with us tonight. Mr. Patrick Connor joins us from the West Coast. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. Hello, Tesla Nation, and welcome to our gigawatt hour of fun. I like that. I'm going to keep doing it.
Also joining us
21 gigawatts
is Casey and Friend in the DC area. How are you today, sir?
We're doing all right. How you doing today? A little wet out today. It rained. You got some Canadian rain out there.
Yeah, snow.
It's easier to shovel, though.
Extremely cold rain is how they phrase that. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, we received about 9 inches so far, and we're expecting another 3 or 4. So wow. It's been fun here today. A lot of shoveling going on. And
I appreciate you translating into American units for me.
But we certainly have had a light winter to this point. So not complaining yet. Anyways, it's been light on the snow side, which has been great. So also today is lots of news this week. A literal ton of news. And we're going to start it off, of course, with the earnings call. And Patrick's going to give us a little summary of what we heard during the earnings call this afternoon.
Yeah. So this one's always cool because it's the Q4 earnings call, which means they cover the whole year. So we got a lot of stats for 2022. Some of it's recap of stuff we already knew, like 1.37 million cars. But then some other stuff, like they had 16.8% margin, highest in the industry. And this is during a year when they had commodity price spikes and supply line problems, and yet they're still having highest in the industry results. A few other numbers, I won't throw too many out, but 12.5 billion in income, 7.5 billion in free cash flow, $20 billion cash on hand. They paid off $500 million in debt. They have very little debt remaining. So yeah, that's just a few of the numbers off the top. Elon spoke first. The first thing he addressed was demand. There's this, were you cutting prices because there's a demand slump? And he wanted to address that directly. It was also the first question from the Say shareholder, but he answered it before that even got asked. And right now, they're seeing an order rate that is 2 times that of their production rate. Now, that's obviously, just at this moment in time. So it's not expected that that's going to be sustained. But cut prices a little bit, and you get a whole lot of people that are interested. And
on that one there, the Say question was, I'm hearing it's half of the blah, blah, blah. And he said, no, it was double in the presentation before they got to the Say questions, right?
Yes, exactly.
So they were off by the factor 4?
Right. Yes, they're not producing twice as many as the demand. It's the other way around. The demand is twice as high as what they're currently making. So price changes absolutely matter. That's a demand lever that they have. When you have industry-leading margins, you can do those things. Their cost controls are working. So in 2022, they were ramping up Gigafactory Austin and Berlin. And when you are ramping up a new factory, that's when it's its least profitable. You have all the overhead of building this massive factory, and you're making very few vehicles out of it. Well, this year, that's when both of these factories are going to ramp. So that will take a lot of that. They'll have even better margins this year than last year if that plays out. The other just recap of some of the stuff. FSD beta went out to about 400,000 drivers in 2022. The safety statistics show that it is working. 4680 production is now at about 1,000 cars per week. And we'll touch on this story later. They're adding 100 gigawatt hours of capacity at Giga Nevada. The plan is to get to 1,000 gigawatt hours of battery cell production by Tesla. This is in addition to everything that they're buying from their partners, battery partners. And so if they've got 100 now and they're going to get to 1,000, you can expect some more announcements coming out later this year, next year, about where those are going to be manufactured. That should be exciting.
So on the FSD safety aspect, that should, it won't, but it should address all the, or at least some of the coverage they've been receiving about FSD and people who aren't properly driving their cars.
Yes, yeah, and supposedly California has a law that went into effect earlier this month that says they can't call it FSD anymore. So we'll see how that plays out.
Should help with people who don't drive it and don't know what it is, not confusing it, hopefully. Unless they pick another confusing name.
Yeah, we'll
My
see.
vote is
We'll
on
see.
not FSD.
Yes.
Almost FSD. Beta.
Yes. Right. Okay. Next was on the list was energy storage. It has had record growth, and when this came up, Elon started talking about Tesla has 3 pillars. The first one is using renewable energy, such as driving your car. Then the renewable energy production, such as solar and wind. It was interesting that he threw wind in there. I mean, yes, it's renewable, but in the Tesla context, that's not something that they have. And then the last one was storage. So you have to have those 3 pillars. And so if you want to look at what might they do in the future, what fits into that they don't have, and there were some hints that they have new products coming out that'll be announced later, and they said wait for Investor Day. That's when you'll get to learn more about that stuff. It's not going to be announced here. An earnings call is not the right place to do that. Even though they got asked 2 or 3 more times, the answer was still no. You're not going to get to learn about that now. Although they did get one answer when they started talking about 4680 volumes going up. One of the questions was, with the IRA, there are incentives in there for industrial vehicles. Will Tesla do something beyond the Semi? And Elon said, well, that's kind of what I was hinting at, which was like, what? You just, yeah. So he said, but I'm not going to give you any more details because this isn't the right place for that. So they might have some other industrial vehicle that will be announced soon.
Well, also the IRA includes provisions for grid storage. So Megapack switching to 4680s like you talked about this morning, that can also be part of it.
Yes. And he did say that any new products that they announce, they will be using 4680s, right, which I thought was interesting. So that is their plan. That's the direction. That's the technology they want to use. So if you're planning on having a big market for 2170s, forget about it. You should be looking at 4680s if you produce batteries.
I'm curious about the Nevada semis, though, if they'll use 2170s, start with 2170s, or if they're going to switch to 4680s once that part of the factory is ready.
Right. Yeah. It would make sense to switch as soon as they can. But see, that was okay. So one of the things that Musk talked about that I think really makes sense was there's no point in announcing new products or having new products if to make them, you have to steal battery capacity from the existing product line and make fewer of those. If you're battery constrained, having more product lines is just less efficient. If you're battery constrained, then you should have as few products as you can to sell those batteries, those cells, and then so whatever the bottleneck is, whatever the limiting factor is, work on that, and then only then announce new products. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do later this year. There was we've talked about some of these. It was interesting. There was a question about when will Cybertruck production begin, and they really downplayed it. And they said, well, when production begins, it's low volume. What really matters is when do we hit volume production, and that's going to be in 2024. So If you have a Cybertruck order, unless you're in a very low number, you're probably not going to get it this year. It's funny how they're only concerned with the volume because, of course, that's what impacts the bottom line. The people who want the vehicle are like, "Itty, just give me some."
Yeah, exactly.
Hardware 4. So for their full self-driving hardware, cameras, sensors, the inference engine that runs in there, that is coming in the Cybertruck. Hardware 4 will first ship with Cybertruck. And there was a question about, well, okay, if it's coming, you know it's coming this year, will there be an upgrade path for Hardware 3? And Musk said no, that Hardware 3 is adequate. It's going to do what needs to be done. Hardware 4 will be better, but it'll be the difference between being 4 times better than human and 4.2 times better than human, or whatever his actual numbers were. And it was interesting because he said the cost of upgrading all the Hardware 3 would be financially prohibitive, and it's not going to be done. So there you go. If you really, really want Hardware 4, you got to wait and get a new vehicle sometime later this year, maybe. Or get a Cybertruck.
Yeah,
there was
exactly.
I think the last point I'll touch on, there was a lot. Oh, I have to read this slide. So we are all betting on how many vehicles they're going to make this year, right?
Yeah.
And one of the analysts said, your guidance is for 1.8 million. Why, when we know you have production capacity of 2 million plus? And Elon's answer cracked me up. He said, yes, we have capacity for 2 million, but there's always some friggin' force majeure, whether it's a supply chain shortage, a hurricane, a war, a pandemic. So yes, if everything goes smoothly, we'll far exceed our guidance. But that's the guidance that we have.
So he's baking in a problem, which he's experienced for the past few years.
Yes, which I thought was funny because I did the same thing when we were talking about it. I said, "Oh yeah, I think they're going to be over 2 million," but my guess was 1.9 something. And you're like, "Well, why? You just said you think they're going to do 2 million. Why would you write down 1.9?"
I figure you roll the dice a few times, you're liable to come up with snake eyes, but you also, if you keep rolling, eventually you're going to get at things perfect for a year.
Right.
So
yes.
I'm
you get
thinking,
boxcars once in a while too. Yep.
I'm thinking 2023 is going to be a perfect year.
I hope you're right. Yes. That was a good one. They also talked about insurance and the fleet maturing. They talked about Dojo will awaken this year, and how they expect it to be competitive with other supercomputers and exceed them next year, since it's single focused. It's not general purpose. They can really optimize. Yeah, there was a question about who do you see as your biggest competitor 5 years from now, and that was an interesting answer. Elon went right to thinking 5 years out from now, AI is the most important thing for Tesla. And from that perspective, it's not even clear who's in second place. You couldn't see them with the telescope from where we're standing, which I thought was interesting. And then someone else on the call, I'm not sure who else in his was there, said, well, from a vehicle perspective, the legacy automakers are losing market share and Tesla's gaining market share. So the only ones that are going to be competitive are the ones that can keep pace with the growth of EVs. And right now, that's only Chinese automakers. So 5 years from now, it's the Chinese automakers that could be in a dominant position, which I thought was really interesting because you think about how Japan came into the US and became a dominant market player, and how right now it's the US, Germany, and Japan primarily. But that could change. That could change with the transition to EVs. That's a strategic inflection point. That's when kings fall and new players can arise. So it would be interesting to see if 5 years from now, China's exporting EVs around the world, and Honda is a shadow of its old self if it even exists, for example.
Yeah, it's definitely. I know that Sandy Munro has warned about China and
Exactly.
talked about how he believes that China is coming on strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the IRA is to limit some of China's possible success within the United States, is to protect the market somewhat, a little bit, at least for the next 10 years. They won't be able to protect it forever, but it looks like that's part of the, besides building infrastructure and everything at home, it also protects some U.S. automakers for a little bit of time going forward.
It does, until they start selling their factories to companies like BYD, and they start building in the U.S. and then do qualify for the IRA. And,
that could be an issue for sure.
Well, so then you've got Senator Manchin is pushing through. The one aspect I do like is it will close the leasing loophole, but the problem is it looks like they'll try and get a little wider at the anti his team stance on the matter of EVs.
Yeah.
Not his team, because his team is a team of one, but you know what I mean, the team he's looped in.
You know, Team Wyoming, you mean?
right then. but West Virginia, really. But
well, there's some stuff that Tesla really didn't catch or talk about that much, and that, of course, is the new $3.6 billion upgrade that they have promoted with the governor of Nevada. And of course, that was the announcement that a new factory line for the TeslaSemi was going to be put into place. And there was a few reports about this, and a lot of people thought this meant a different factory. In fact, I have a few news releases that we reported upon that had indicated that they were separate factories, even in separate locations. But
I think Tesla used the word factories as well, but they never specified it was a different location on their end.
Yeah, but this actually is the case, that it's going to be within Nevada Gigafactory. So it's just a different floor space allocated to a line or two of semi-production.
I wonder if only that half of the building is going to have windows, or if they're going to go and update the rest of the exterior look.
Well, yeah. There is the other option too, that factory is not at full size yet either. It's not up to its projected size. They've still got extra room to construct it even larger. But it's there has been staffing issues getting it to grow. Not sure if it's going to help that now they're building a line in. Obviously, that's going to be different employees, because before it was basically batteries only. Now there's going to be construction of vehicles that could be maybe bring in different types of employees that are available in the region. They're just haven't applied for battery jobs. I guess we'll have to see. The other thing was that, as Patrick has mentioned, the scaling up of 4680s is still going on, but it now seems that Tesla has over that little bit of a hump that we've been talking about for the past number of months, that the 4680 production wasn't that great because they were probably dealing with some sort of issue on the performance of the battery, the chemical composition, how the process was being put together, line issues or improvements that they needed to employ first. But it does seem now that with this announcement, they're adding another line or number of lines of 4680s that are going to be added to Gigafactory Nevada as well. And and that number they're saying now is 100 gigawatts, which equates to 2 million light duty vehicles, or 2 million Model 3s, Model Ys. Basically, they didn't want to confuse it by saying the Semi would be part of that 2 million, but they're saying that the battery amount, 100 gigawatt hours, is attributable to about 2 million vehicles.
Yeah, David brought up a good point in the chat here that one of the things they said on the call is that they're making this 100 gigawatt hours in the space that other battery manufacturers would only be able to make about 35. So they're about 3 times space efficient. Yeah.
In the same building.
Older cells, yes.
And as Patrick was saying earlier, if their goal is to be at 1,000 gigawatt hours, guess what? That's 20 million vehicles, which is the number that we've heard from Elon previously.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and of course, it's not just going into cars, right? They have their storage products and the semi and whatever unannounced things that they are going to do. But yeah, very interesting. The model I have only has them going up to like 13 million vehicles, so maybe I need to go update my model.
Well, that's the other thing is if they do get to the point where they're comfortable in producing the 4680s, and it certainly appears that they're going to start to ramp up with this, then that lets me know that one of the constraints that has been holding them back last year is now starting to fade away.
Yes.
So with the ramp up, you could definitely see that maybe that number where we're saying they're going to produce 2 million cars could be low. If that is the only thing that was holding them back was battery production, being able to start ramp up Germany and Texas all at the same time with an unlimited amount of supply of batteries, according to how much they can actually produce at those two factories, it could result in quite a boost in production of vehicles this coming year.
That would be nice.
I'm curious if they're going to go in the Powerwall too. Like, does it have enough space to hold 4680s?
I would say if it doesn't, they'd make room for it. Like they would change the exterior packaging.
Yeah. So right now they have Powerwall 2 Plus. They could have a Powerwall 3. And if anything, I would think that for stationary storage, they should be going to iron.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if that was in this announcement or very recently they announced that the Megapacks were iron, but it'd also be cool to get a confirmation that the Powerwall has also gone iron.
Okay, yeah. So I haven't heard that before. So they haven't announced that yet, as far as I know, about the Powerwall.
Right, not the Powerwall, but definitely Megapack.
So that's something that certainly could be done, but if 4680s are the future, which was again reinstated today, that also is going to help them with their margins, because we all knew that from Battery Day a few years ago that the creation of the 4680 was going to save them tremendously, not just on what the battery could hold, but the costs of producing that battery. So that means that their profit will increase on every car that they sell with a 4680 in it, because they're going to cost less to produce and place in those cars. So that's going to be a big win for the company as they start switching over to, and all of them start taking that battery.
Yeah, it's amazing that they're getting the results they are now when we know that they have things that are just at the beginning phases, and that's the most expensive part. So it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah.
Things go according to plan.
And then, as Patrick said in the earnings call, they indicated they paid off some more debt, and they basically are down to an amount that is almost zero compared to what they were holding before. So this is another plus, where the interest that they're being charged on loans now basically becomes null as time has gone along here. So yeah, there's a lot of pluses in this year-end call and end of quarter call that you can see Tesla just benefiting from as we go forward.
Yeah, they also pointed out that they were doing so much better than their competition without trying to badmouth the competition, but at the same time they're saying, look at the figures.
Yeah, the thing I didn't hear that I was expecting them to mention was a potential stock buyback. Musk has sort of already committed to it, and you would think that the financial analysts would have been all over the hints he's dropped about that and asking, is that going to happen? When's it going to happen? What do you expect it to impact for your cash on hand, for the stock price?
I think we'll probably hear about that
if knows to ask.
by the end of the second quarter or end of third quarter. Because remember, he also said it at the same time that we have to wait and see how the economy plays out. So maybe they knew not to ask this time, or Tesla did a really good job of filtering that out.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because analysts tend to ask those questions regardless, because of course they're interested in the stock price. That's the whole deal with them. So that's a big part of what they're doing. So
Yeah.
surprising that they didn't ask that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, another part of the puzzle is, of course, expanding Tesla sales. And Casey's got our next story about a new place that Tesla has arrived.
Yeah, so Tesla announced that they were coming to Thailand, and then before that, we noticed that Thai was added as one of the languages in the car, and just this past week, the first shipment arrived with Model 3s and Model Ys, and my wife tells me that they're still too expensive for most people there, but clearly there's enough people there with some money to buy the whole shipment.
She has some friends or family in Thailand?
Oh yeah, she still does.
Cool.
Yeah, because that's where she's from.
So you've got a boatload of Teslas that showed up for the first time, and they've laid the groundwork. Is there any supercharging in Thailand, Casey? Do you happen to know?
I think there's got to be, because remember they have those 50 or 75 police vehicles, the Model 3 performances.
Well, could have been just charging at the police headquarters.
They could have been. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Yeah.
You take a look. And
are you going to do what's the a better route planner or okay, yeah.
The other
question. So I wonder, since those police cars were likely gray vehicles, but maybe not. Maybe they were the trial shipment. Like, hey, we need to certify these. Hey, we need police cars.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You help us and we'll help you.
These varied performances.
Another.
So where are these cars being delivered from? Because they probably
that's a
wouldn't.
good question. But they are being delivered to Bangkok, so.
I don't think that Thailand has, or do they? Do they have as low of an opinion of China as some other Asian countries do?
I will say, when my wife first got here, she would turn over a product and say, China!
Okay.
Because that's how it was over there when they were neighbors. You turn it over and it was Chinese because it was cheaper to do it that way. But
yeah,
to come half a world away and still see it, it was kind of a shock, I suppose.
That would be interesting to know as well, as to whether or not they're coming from China. Certainly, China has the capacity to deliver. Like Thailand, as Casey has mentioned, is not a huge market. It's a new market. It's not huge, but certainly
big,
delivering
but
there,
it's not huge, yeah.
Delivering there would not be much of a job for Shanghai for sure. But
right.
Another note about
as of a few months ago, they didn't have any superchargers.
You don't see any?
As of a few months ago, they didn't have any.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. That well, Thailand's not a huge country either, but you would think that they would put a few superchargers as time goes along. Certainly with the delivery, maybe those locations are being picked out or have been picked out, because
if you want to go
no
from
place that Tesla hasn't opened up sales areas that superchargers had not followed or were there previously before those sales areas opened.
If you want to go from one side of the country to the other, it's a couple days, just like here. So the search has some stuff in Thailand. Let's see, stores and galleries. No superchargers showing up though.
Okay.
Oh wow, I'm surprised because if you want to sell vehicles somewhere, you have to have service for it and charging for it. I mean, those are the two essentials. And so if they don't have it now, it's coming soon.
And David asks, is
Yunnan province.
Is CCS the charging standard as it is in Europe, in Thailand, would you think?
That's a good question. Are they going to be more like South Korea or in Japan? Or are they going to be more like China? China has the double ports.
So that's right. China is double. Yeah.
I'm curious now.
Okay.
I have to get her to ask somebody who knows somebody who drives a Tesla.
We got some questions. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Snap a photo for us. Share it in our Twitter feed.
Next story I wanted to just touch upon is that those quality assurance robots have been installed at Fremont, and now they're in operation. They already have these quality assurance robots in Shanghai, I understand, and they are also being placed inside of Texas and Berlin. But Fremont didn't have any to this point because, of course, it was the first factory. And from what I understand, this quality assurance robots are searching and looking at the interior of the vehicle as it's on the line. So it's not looking at exterior or anything yet, strictly interior. So
use some exterior from all the complaints.
well, just a piece of the puzzle, right? You're going to start somewhere. You've got X amount of robots. You've got to, of course, program them all, and then you've got them looking at the vehicle. Probably made sense that interior was the first place to place them. Probably made sense the way that they're being built.
A white left side and a black right side. and wood on carbon fiber.
I hope that's not the only thing it's looking for is color.
Right. And it's not a common failure we've seen of them, but we've seen it on all of the cars now.
This is interesting because it's cameras running AI to determine something. I've heard of some other company that might have some technology in that space.
They might.
Yeah.
And
so I wonder if they're going to
controlled environment like this. You don't have to worry about it trying to run a red light.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So I guess we're not going to see Optimus out there anytime doing the inspection anytime soon. So they had to do this instead.
Optimus has got the sensor set to do that.
It would be funny. Yeah.
They're just going to put Optimus's head on some sort of robotic arm. It'll just shove the head in the twister out, it comes back out.
That sounds expensive.
Look around.
They probably got a camera on those too.
Look at the body later. Yeah, exactly. Next story. A little bit about Frito Lay and what was happening there recently, Casey.
So Frito was doing like an environment day, and they were showing off like how not just their Tesla semis, but all of their investments, including their Mega Pack and their other non-Tesla products, were helping them achieve their net zero goal. And
are they trying to move towards a future free from fossil fuels?
They certainly are. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is they had a couple different angles of all of their vehicles charging, and we could see one of the Frito Lay wraps Tesla semis was still rocking the modified MCS2 connector that we saw on the spy shots of at the time we called them Tesla Mega Chargers, but now we're calling them Tesla Semi Chargers. So I'm curious if they're going to go back and retrofit them with NACS, or if they're just going to use MCS2, even though nobody else from Charin is able to use MCS2 because of the legal concerns, being that somebody owns the hairpin connector.
Yeah, so they were showing, obviously the Tesla Semi was a big part of the event, but also showing off their solar and battery banks and even their shuttle fleet of vehicles, which of course are not Tesla, but
semis and their forklifts.
Exactly. So there's a bunch
and
of
the
stuff
Mega Packs
that they were pushing for.
And the chargers.
And we knew this too because, of course, the president of Pepsi over a year ago had talked about them coming with the semis early. He was about a year early on his guesstimate. But now that they're there, I'm sure they're
That's how they told him you're going to get them by the end of the year. And he said we're going to get them by the end of the year, and then they left him out to dry.
It was a test to see if he would leak. just like the governor of Nevada, man. He was on Twitter this morning immediately saying, "Hey, I'm showing up with Elon, and we're going to talk about the new investment in Nevada." And it's like he let that out of the bag. That wasn't even that was something that they were probably trying to keep quiet for a little while to the end of the day, anyways.
He was obsessed with people's height. That was weird.
That was weird. And
everybody was young man.
What do you mean he was obsessed with height? What do you mean?
He was dissing on some guy for being short, and then when someone else came up on stage, like, "Oh, they're short, but not as short as that guy short," and it just was like, "You're being a jerk." You might think it's funny, but yeah,
right. And then everybody was young man and young lady, but they were all not young.
Maybe he thought he was open mic night at the comedy stand.
He might have a little liquid courage in him.
Well, here's another note that came from Elon earlier in the week, and this, of course, was his comment about peak oil being reached within 5 years. Now, if you're of my age, when you had been told about peak oil, especially 10, 15 years ago, that usually was a talk about the world running out of oil to use in their gasoline vehicles. We had talked about that when we were in, just after school, after high school. There was talk about the world running out of obtainable oil that was not too hard or too expensive to get. But Elon's comment was a different type of peak oil, and his comment was directed to that will be the date when the Earth uses its upper top amount of oil that it will ever use. And from that point, from that peak, it will start to decrease. And of course, that's because of these sustainable vehicles that are coming to market, including Tesla, that they will not be using oil anymore. And therefore, we will not have to drill and refine as much oil as we currently are, because of course the transportation fleet of the Earth is currently almost all oil driven.
Yeah. I also saw an article that claimed that we had already hit peak gasoline this month. I didn't read it, so I don't know the details on that.
Well, that would be within 5 years, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
it would. But gasoline and oil, they're related, but not the same thing.
But it also may something to do with, we're heading into a little bit of a slowdown, possibly a recession. And of course, with recessions and slowdowns, you tend to have less oil being used for transportation too. So,
right.
But that's a great thing to hear, though. Like that we could get to the point within 5 years that from that point forward, it decreases for the amount used.
Right. And then and that's in that same recession. More of the cars and trucks will have been replaced with EVs, so that it may never recover. Go ahead, Petra. Sorry.
One of my favorite sayings is the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones.
Exactly.
And so the oil age doesn't have to end because we've run out of oil. We used to use whale oil, and we found a better alternative and stopped killing whales just for their oil. So if we were actually to a point where we had run out or nearly run out of oil, or only had the really hard to get deep oil, bitumen, whatever, the least, all the light sweet crude is gone, prices would be horrible. And if our economy is still based on that, it's going to be really horrible economic time for the entire world, outside of the pollution issue. So if we find a better alternative,
we have that uses oil that isn't burning it. Like you got rubber, you got pharmaceuticals, plastics, you got pharmacies, you got fertilizers, plastics, especially plastics.
So finding a better alternative and moving for the right reasons while the prices are still accessible to mere mortals is a good thing. And that's what we should all be striving for: is move to EVs, because they're better in so many ways. You can fuel up at home. You can do it with renewable energy. With gasoline, you've got one way to derive it. There's some biogas, but I mean those are it's completely unscalable. That could never replace the amount that we have today, which is why so many of the oil companies like to tout that. It's because they know it can never really displace them, but they can make hay about it. Right. But with electricity, there's lots and lots of ways you can generate electricity. And if one spikes in cost, you just shift to the other, and then
it's fungible.
Exactly. So when you have alternatives, then you have competition, then you have good pricing.
Yeah. The other thing to look at, though, is all those other uses we do have for oil. If you leave the easy to access stuff that they can just keep the oil mill running for keep the rigs up that we've got now, then we know that can run for another couple decades. However, if we use up all the good stuff, are they going to do the exploration and do the digging to get oil for plastic, get oil for pharmacy, get oil for fertilizer? They're not. The profit incentive won't be there, because the farmer's not going to be able to raise his prices enough to cover that, like transportation and military uses do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Well, here's an interesting story as well. One of the other big stories of the week, and I'm going to share the screen to show you guys.
She's zonked out.
Boom. So this happened earlier in the week where Tesla had updated their supercharger map. And for those that don't know, in the supercharger map, you do have the ability to, of course, filter by certain parameters, one being CCS charging. And of course, you can see that by looking at Western Europe. A number of different Tesla chargers in that area have the ability to charge with CCS as well as the Tesla charger. And this, of course, allows third-party cars to connect to the Tesla network if they use the app. And we've been going along with this, wondering when North America was going to be added to this, because Elon has mentioned it's coming. In fact, he said it was coming soon. And what happened here is that some sharp-eyed person was able to notice that there was an update on the Tesla site. They quickly searched for CCS in North America, and a single location came up. And this, of course, is a location that's very close to the Tesla design studio in Hawthorne, California. And as you can see by the red box, it is flagged as CCS compatible. The picture, the inset of the charger, shows a thicker I guess, plug, which is speculated to be what they call now the magic dock.
Mm-hmm.
And the magic dock basically is a regular Tesla plug that plugs into some apparatus that is converted to a CCS plug. And depending on the vehicle that pulls up to the charger, you can either get the CCS plug on the end of the cable to plug into your non-Tesla vehicle, or possibly the Tesla charger would unplug from the dock and allow you to charge normally for a Tesla vehicle. So this is some speculation, but it is interesting to see that they are testing the CCS compatibility, and whether it's going to be the first location will be in Hawthorne or someplace else, that's speculation as well. But it is interesting to see that they are playing with this, and that information most likely got out by mistake recently. They were flipping switches and stuff just to seeing if it was work, and someone said, "Well, why didn't you do this on the dev site, not the live site?"
They don't have a dev, just like Twitter. So the Tesla Scope team sent some individuals, either the main guy or both of them, and went to go verify, and they did not see Magic Dock at Hawthorne. But they were able to verify that the person who did find in the app and on the website, they did verify that they were seeing the same thing there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to give us a pat on the back, though, just because way back when they first talked about that coming, are you patting yourself on the back? Is that,
of course, on the back. Go ahead.
Casey took it quite literally.
Yeah, that's good.
Hey. When they first announced they were going to do this, we were speculating about how it could be done. And anybody could have an adapter, but those adapters are going to be stolen. And you don't want to make all the drivers buy adapters, because that's not super convenient. I mean, there are us hardcore guys who love to have a whole backpack full of adapters, but that's not Tesla's model, right? They want to make EVs easy to drive, easy to charge, easy to get where you're going. And that means the adapter thing has to be transparent. And so this is exactly what we said it would be, is that if you pull up with a Tesla, you pull it out, you get the NACS connector, although it wasn't called NACS at that time. Right. But if you want to charge a non-Tesla vehicle, well, you have to have their app anyway, and you have to tell it what stall you're going to be in. So when you do that in the app, boom, it's going to lock on that CCS adapter. And then when you pull it out to charge your car, you're getting it with the connector that you needed. And it's locked on there, so it can't be stolen. And then when you have to put it back when you're done, and then the same thing can happen for the next person. And when they just grab it, it'll have whatever type of adapter they needed on the end, or no adapter. The right connector just automatically happens. So magic dock, magic happens. And it's smart engineering.
Cuts the cable while it's undocked. Will it release it? Or will it zap it?
I think all the pilot safety stuff still happens through CCS, so
Well,
I don't think they would get shocked just because it had an adapter on it. They're still jerks though, either way. But
yeah. I wonder if it's like if it's like just is it electromechanical lock like with a solenoid, or does it physically like turning a deadbolt, and so even if they do it, they've just got now a worthless. I mean, in addition to the already being worthless, but now it's even more worthless.
Not sure.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to see. I'm very interested to see when these start to show up. That was a great point, Casey, that they did send people over immediately to the Hawthorne site to look for a magic dock on one of the 20 chargers. We're disappointed when they didn't find anything. But
I'm at 1A and it still looks normal.
Yeah, damn, exactly.
So one thing that did intrigue me about this, though, is that on V3 chargers, which Hawthorne is, or is mostly, I'm not sure if it, I think when I looked up the site, it just said 250. It didn't say up to 250. The 250 chargers, the V3s, they have a black color, and in the pictures before lightening and after lightening it up, they look like they have the silver color on the V2 chargers, not earlier.
It could also be not the correct photo yet for what the device is going to look like. This was just a test, right? So they could be
put the thing up there, like use the block from the CCS charger in Europe, and then use the cable from V2, and then slap it in the app, because they're just supposed to be testing it, right? And
but having that, at least it's going to give them the flexibility. They're going to be able to add that most likely quickly to a number of already installed V3 superchargers wherever they may be. Whether they just do a couple per location, or if it's all of them at a location, they're going to have that flexibility that they can just install that magic dock on just one or multiple chargers. So should be an easy solution, as long as, of course, the dock works properly and keeps the CCS one locked in place, depending on what vehicle has pulled up and what the app has indicated is charging.
They way more affordable for this, because I was looking at some photos I had taken of a V3 supercharger 3 years ago now. Yeah, exactly 3 years ago. In Lynchburg, Virginia, they supply 24 volts to the pedestal, so there's already power for the radiator and the fan and all that, and the lights, and they've got 2 slots for cables. I don't know if that's just something that is left in there because in Europe they've got 2 slots, but those are only on V2. They don't need them on V3 because those are CCS only. So it will be cheaper to use a magic dock than to run another cable with CCS handle in the end, because now you're only using the very tip of the CCS handle rather than a whole nother mega loop of cable plus the cooling plus having to wire it up. So I could see them just replacing the latch with this, plugging it into, there's probably already a slot for the 24 volt for that, or tapping off the one for the light or the one for the fan or whatever, and seems to be a pretty quick install. And then with the modular that they've got coming from both Giga Nevada and Giga Buffalo, they just palletize these things for the new installs and just drop them out there.
Yeah.
Pretty smart way to do it. And a whole lot cheaper than installing a whole nother infrastructure for CCS or a second cable.
Right. Well, the second cable is cheaper than, like you said, new post, but this is even cheaper than cable. Exactly. And like we said, if somebody goes through and cuts them all, you're only replacing the one cable rather than double plus the adapters.
Yep.
And if you're watching us for the first time tonight, we'd like to give us a thumbs up on the video. Press that subscribe if you hadn't. That's going to help us out. Doesn't cost you a dime, and gets our name pushed up a little bit higher on the list, and we get to more eyeballs. So really appreciate if you could do that. You can also follow us through the week on our Twitter feed at the Tesla Life, as well as our Facebook feed, the Tesla Life #1. And you can follow us all through the week and get news as it breaks. Another interesting story that came to us this week was that Elon dropped into someone's conversation who was saying, from his knowledge, that he believed that there were going to have to be a lot more copper mined in the world in order to facilitate more batteries. And Elon came in on that conversation and said, actually, he doesn't see the need for a lot more copper to be mined as this person did. But what he sees needed for Tesla is the refinement of lithium. More refinement is required. We all know that lithium is an abundant resource available in many, many different countries and nations across the world. But we also know that the refinement process can take a long time. If you go down to South America, Chile, other places in South America, Bolivia, they have large pits of, I guess it's water that contains lithium. It's mixed in, and they let the sun do the refining. So it takes a long time for water to evaporate. Therefore, the lithium gets more concise in a smaller footprint. They move it to another pool. It happens again. They move it to another pool. It happens a third time, and then they extract it, and it's more refined at that point that they can sell it to battery makers. And of course, it has to be tested along the way and make sure it's a certain purity, blah, blah, blah. But
it looks like the way that, like, we've seen in Mississippi and Alabama and similar, where we get the salt for sea salt. It looks just like that.
Yeah.
Just different colors because the chemicals are different.
So Elon touched upon that he believes that more refining has to happen, whether it's an artificial refinery or a natural one, as we just explained. That's up for interpretation, but certainly with the volume that he's asking for, it's probably going to be some sort of a combination. Certainly they can take whatever is available at the time, but they're probably going to be looking at other ways to artificially speed up that process of refining lithium down to a certain consistency that's required. So it was interesting that he didn't feel that copper is that much in the equation. We don't hear that much about copper being used in the batteries anyways. Kind of interesting that this one person that was talking about their knowledge in batteries and what was going to happen with the world battery needs talked about copper in the first place. But it was interesting that the Elon, again, he's been talking about lithium for some time, and he's been talking about refining, and that Tesla may be required to do some of this themselves, because if others don't get involved with it, they're not going to sit on the sidelines and wait for someone to do it for them. They'll get involved with it and get a process down and do some of this themselves, maybe even helping some of the other lithium miners out there in the process by putting together a process that makes it quicker, faster, cheaper for the refinement process.
And we've already seen documentation for them applying to start lithium refineries in Texas.
That's right.
We have. Yep.
It's a short step for that. One of the commenters on the article that we looked at for this pointed out that part of the reason you don't really need as much copper as one would expect is we've been mining copper for thousands of years now, and there's an abundance of it
recycled. Yes. So yeah, you don't need as much new copper going in the system, and we'll get to that point with nickel and lithium and other things. But right now, when there wasn't a big market for them, and that market is growing massively, until you've filled that pipeline and started recycling the old stuff, you are going to need new materials.
Yeah. Another story of interest happened this week. Actually, it was two stories. One for the state of Virginia, one for the state of Mississippi. And the old dealer network is still churning out there, blocking Tesla from sales for sales to happen in these individual states. The dealer networks are putting up blockades based on the money that they've supplied to different governments over time, the different lobbying funds that they are in charge of. It's tough for some governments to turn away from money that they're receiving from lobbyists and others. But Tesla is asked for some help. If you are a resident of the state of Virginia or Mississippi, Tesla would like to ask you to reach out to your state representatives and let them know that you would like the free market to run in that state, and stop blocking Tesla and others from selling vehicles directly to customers without a dealer in between. This is something that Tesla has fought from the very beginning. I couldn't couldn't imagine the number of court cases that they've been involved with to this point, because it seemed in the outset, the beginning of this, that there were a significant amount of states that block them at every turn and produce different types of rules and rulings to prevent them from moving forward with this agenda.
Existing rules, yeah.
So it's something that and I know we as Tesla owners have helped this cause by reaching out to our state and provincial representatives to let them know that we want a free market because it's going to benefit us, the consumer, as a matter of fact. Maybe that wasn't the case back in 1930 or 20 when these rules started to appear. But at this point, it does, without a dealer, it allows us to have one less middleman between the price that we pay for the vehicle and the vehicle itself. So if you are in those states, I would urge you to reach out to your state representatives and let them know your feeling on this, because that's the only way that things change. If you have a number of like-minded people that group together and let the representatives know what their feeling is on this subject.
Yeah, I find it ironic that some of these same politicians who are up for blocking Tesla are the ones that say, oh, we're for the free market, we're for less government regulation. Oh, except we want to protect this thing because they paid us some money. Stand on your principles. I mean, come on. It's very hypocritical.
Exactly.
And there's no reason for it nowadays, right? I mean, imagine if you couldn't go to a farmer's market and buy directly from the farmer. It was required that there was a middleman. Or, consumer electronics, you had to go through some middleman. You couldn't go just to the website, order it, and have it shipped to your house. It's ridiculous. There's no need for it.
The only ones where it really makes sense are drugs and guns. And even then, you could still say, like, the manufacturer could still set up a shop and check your ID.
Right. Yeah. I understand for those, there's requirements for who they're sold to. That doesn't change who is selling it. As long as they meet those requirements that are justified, then fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Like if Pfizer or Glock wanted to set up a storefront, there's nothing stopping them that we can see. I mean, I'm sure each individual state probably has something, but like Apple right now, Apple wants to sell you an iPhone. Verizon wants to sell you an iPhone. AT&T wants to sell you an iPhone. There's nobody stopping you, as long as FCC has verified that the thing's not blasting out the wrong signals.
Right. Yes.
Actually, Casey mentioning Glock just did something in my head. I was in Tennessee on vacation this past summer, and I went by a billboard that said "Every Glock in stock." That's shocking for a Canadian to see, but.
Like David, he said, "Worried about your monopoly? Buy a congressperson today."
Exactly. Be a lobbyist. Yeah. But with that, let's roll on to shoutouts. Casey, any shoutouts for this coming week?
Yeah, so hook us up on, or catch up with us, I should say, on Sunday at youtube.com at Casey Green. That's KACEYGREEN. It'll be very much like this, just with no time limit, and the co-hosts will kind of filter in and out. It's kind of an interesting, just kind of a laid back setup, and it's kind of interesting because like this show we're catching news, and that show we're catching news, but like there's like every time we end a show, like there's something else. So it's kind of like you get like a little step. It's really cool, and I like being able to do that.
Very good, very good. Patrick, any shoutouts for us today?
Yeah, so I just want to go look at the Tesla stock price. So they closed today at 144, and now after market they're at 152. So the market seemed to like the way that call went.
$7, $8 now.
$8. Yeah. So shout out to Tesla stock. I'm going up. Yes, because I am a long-term shareholder, and I'm very happy about this.
Yes.
If you follow me on Twitter, I was having a discussion with somebody as the stock was going down, and I said, I have an order in to buy at 110, and they're like, you're just wasting your money. And now I can just say, haha.
Exactly.
But this, of course, is not stock advice.
No, it's not.
Just It's just
can
revenge
send it.
for Patrick. That's all it is.
Yeah. If you can go back in time and buy it at 110 and sell it tomorrow at 150 something, then it's stock advice. But if you have a time machine, you don't need stock advice from me.
That's right. That's right. For sure. For sure.
Okay, and my normal ones, I blog occasionally at carswithquarters.net, and I am with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org. Thanks a lot.
Very good. Press that like button, press that subscribe, help us out, and we'll get together next week and discuss what is happening in the Tesla life. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Stay positive. That's negative.